Yeah, good afternoon, members of Gen X and Gen Y. So again, we are very fortunate that we have another member of our group who will be sharing with us his advocacy. So I will introduce him to you. So he worked with numerous projects in coordination with LGUs, private sector, and local international NGOs in capacity building, technical expert on risk management and climate change adaptation. So, members of Gen X and Gen Y, let's welcome from Cagayan de Oro City, Mr. Jeffrey Tan. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Hello, good
So, Jeff,
afternoon, hello members. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, the first question, because you sent me your CV, and one of the more personal and interesting question that I would like to ask is, you are a graduate of computer science, but your expertise now is on DRR, climate change adaptation. So, what led you to this industry or certain advocacy?
Medyo malayo nga eh, from typing keyboard to working with communities and going to the environment. I started way back in during college days. I was involved in a extracurricular organization. We call it the Nature Crusader for Philippine Foundation. It's a school-based
Mm-hmm.
organization. So it started there as advocacy and awareness student group. We have small project like mangrove planting,
Mm-hmm.
coastal cleanup, and sometimes we engage some of the local NGOs. That's they also have advocacy to environmental protection or conservation. So I meet one NGOs, a local NGOs in Cagayan de Oro. It's called CART, Center for Alternative Rural Technology. It's a CART. It's an NGO. They have an advocacy in protecting environment, especially in Mindanao. So one of their major advocacy is the anti-logging campaign.
Mm-hmm.
This is before the Typhoon Sindong happened,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think 2000, somewhere in 2001, 2002, something like that. So I volunteer, and after college, I volunteer with them. I realized myself that I kind of enjoy this kind of work. Engaging a lot of people, you can see different faces, different type of sectors, community, and they offer me to to have a full-time volunteer and at the same time a position to be an organizer. So I grabbed that position. I said to myself, who cares about typing in front of a computer? I know I've learned Pascal, Turbo C, Java, and those things, creating website, programming software. I just forgot about it and I joined this group. And I realized that I kind of fit on it. I kind of enjoy it. And I said to myself, I think this is going to be my commitment. I will be working with lots of people engaging in protection of the environment. I'll be working with non-government organizations that mostly are doing some project in an area or in a community that really needs help, like particularly in the fisher folk and the farmers. So that's where they started. So parang nagiging mainstream rin ako for how many, like 2 years volunteer. And then I got a position as an organizer. So I go to the community without the computer, without talking about any computer. Yeah. And I started working with them. I realized that there's a bigger role for me to be involved. And so this that started. And then I get another project. And this is where it also started that I realized that most of the impact of a hazard or the threat of hazard, the risk of the hazard, the most vulnerable sector are not living on the urban, are mostly living on the sectoral areas, like in the coastal and in the urban area. These are the farmers and the fisher folk. These are the sectors that provide us food. These are the sectors are the front lines in protecting our water, protecting our environment, etc. So there's really needed help. So that's why I was involved. Then I just got lucky that I get also another NGO. This time is in Surigao del Norte. This is where I first involved with disaster risk reduction, the DRR. I was trained for a week with Rusty Vinyas, is a former court aid consultant. And then I get another training for DRR, which is for more, particularly on the community managed disaster risk reduction. And this is where it started. I worked with DRR, and after went back to Cagayan de Oro, and that's what happened to Typhoon Sindong. And this is where I get involved under PEF to work
Mm-hmm.
under the DRR
Mm-hmm.
component, especially on the Cagayan de Oro and Iligan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's cool that it's like an enlightenment for you when you learned about the what you were doing with the NGO as volunteer. That if you're going to dig deeper of the reason why you have to be involved in that is not necessarily just to address the problems, like say if there's a typhoon, if there's it's because the root cause or the root I mean the sector that will really be affected here is the sector that's very important to all of us. Para
Yep.
the more na, uy, kailangan ko talaga palang gawa ng paraan to, kailangan bigyan ng solusyon kasi hindi mababaw yung rason. No, it involves a lot. I mean, not only environment but economic. No, um,
Lahat na eh.
yeah,
Oh.
everything. Which brings me to the question now, which I asked you beforehand before we record this. That's why with the question I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an observation. No, that in the Philippines, I don't know if I'm comparing our country when we get news from the other countries that if there is a low awareness on effects of climate change and the causes of these changes, what could be the reason? Is there really low awareness compared to other countries? And if there is, what do you think in your exposure? What do you think is the reason behind this?
Two things, Miss Anne.
Mm.
Basically, I would admit that there's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
increase of awareness lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because of what we are experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ang daming typhoon, ang
Mm-hmm.
daming pa, etc. But if we go back like 5 to 10 years ago, there's already an awareness, but hindi lang masyadong naintindihan. Ano ba to? Is this natural? Is this one of the what we call the
Mm-hmm.
impact of climate change, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Then basically, I asked some of the like I work with local government unit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dividing line.
Mm-hmm.
They know about the impact of climate change, but still, in terms of prioritization, in terms of awareness building, dun talaga nagkulang eh. Because they tend to go back the word business as usual. Parang the business as usual, the same lang din, yung planning, the same lang engagement, etc. And I was wondering, like, if we go to the other sectors and we talk about climate change, if we talk about this, isa lang lumalabas sa kanila eh, bagyo, baha, disaster, etc. Sabi ko, parang iba yung konsepto eh. When we talk about climate change, first, it's basically it's a normal. Our climate is changing because the earth is buhay yung buhay yung earth natin eh. Pangalawa, what make it more risky is that we provided so much fossil-based fuel or gas, yung greenhouse gases for how many years. It tends to accelerate the change of climate. And this is where the risk coming in. Yung pagbabago ng klima na talagang binilisan natin for the last like 2 centuries or I'm not very specific about it. But basically if you check on the record on the scale kung ano ba talaga yung number of greenhouse gases na pinoproduce talagang it really have an impact on the climate change. Talagang bumili siya. And particularly pag sinabi natin talagang climate change, we need to look at what are these risks, ano yung triggers niya. So, if you could say that they could be an increased, decreased temperature, yung init.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the urban, if you're in the city, talagang if you look at around, wala kang makikitang kahoy, lahat ng daan, simentado, lahat ng pader, simentado, lahat-lahat, at tapos kung alam mo naman na pag simentado yan lahat, it absorb heat. So it add more heat or temperature sa urban area. Pag pumunta ka na ba doon sa isang lugar naman, yung watershed, yung parang bundok, wala nang trees. So sabihin mo, if there's one impact of climate change that there will be increase, decrease, for example, precipitation or rainfall, tataas yung ulan, bababa yung ulan. Tapos yung bundok natin, walang kahoy, anong mangyayari? So lahat ng tubig, didiretso lang. Ba? And if we talk about surface water, plus hindi siya nag-absorb ng tubig, and this will, the hazards come in, the risk na pwedeng mag-impact on your food security yung sa farm area. It could be also impact on the social, it could create more mga waterborne diseases. Ang dami eh. So isa lang yun. Tapos if you go to the coastal areas naman or mga island naman, yung isang impact ng climate change, yung sinasabi ko, kasi dalawa yun eh, the extreme and the slow onset event. Yung extreme kasi, yun yung talagang alam ng mga tao. Pag sinabing extreme event, typhoon, baha, gano'n eh. Yung isang pinaka-delikado sa impact ng climate change o risk ng climate change is the slow onset. One particularly is yung tinatawag namin na sea level rise or the SLR. So, alam naman natin ang Pilipinas is surrounded by body of waters. Alam naman natin ang daming isda, ang daming community sa isang isda. Alam mo ba na most of the sea level rise, hindi lang siya parang yung impact na storm surge lang, hindi. But also creeping on the water supply of the coastal communities. Nagiging salty yung tubig lang. Like for example, in Giwan, it's 56 barangays, 70% are island and coastal. Majority of their water coming is from the groundwater. At pag during sa high tide, huwag ka nang umasa may tubig ka makukuha na fresco kasi nga nagiging salty siya. Imagine that, yun yung tinatawag isang impact. Isa lang yung slow onset lang. Tapos if we go to the upland area, if there's gonna be an increase of temperature, yung init, na based on the projection, there will be like 1.5 degrees Celsius na increase by 2036. Anong mangyayari sa farm area mo? Ngayon, basically, they don't have this experience before. Sabi nila, sir, drought na to, sir. Anong drought? Alam mo yung drought, that's 6 to 8 months. Pag wala kang tubig masyado. Ay, hindi pala, sir. Ano ba yung sinasabi yung drought? Every year ba yan? Every 2 years, sir? Every year sa out. Delikado na yun kung every year yan. Yung nalaman ko pala, it started with dry spell. During the dry season, kasi walang word na summer eh. Pag we're talking about climate change, it's only wet and dry. So during dry season, or sabi na para maintindihan natin summer period, pag isang triggers ng climate change, ng increased temperature, there's a possibility there will be decrease of rainfall. So one of the impact dito, ang risk dito, it could create like from dry spell na 2 to 3 months na yung mga ibang area na hindi na na-experience, ngayon meron na, it could extend to 4 to 6 months. And this is what we call drought na. Pag drought na itong natatamaan sila, very delicado na.
Yeah. And it concerns all of us.
Yep, it's concerned all of us. So, temperature, rainfall, extreme event, those are the risks or the impact of climate change. And we can do something about it. The ironic part of this, Miss Anne, is that kung wala tayong gagawin ngayon, wala tayong participation, even at the point of talking about it, yung risk at impact ay hindi tayo yung yung magsasuffer eh. Is our next generation, yung mga bata natin. At sila yung innocent kasi wala silang ginagawa, tapos sila yung nagsuffer. So baka yung new normal nila, hindi lang COVID, pati na yung impact ng climate change.
So talking about that, no, and it's a good thing we're talking about it right now. So, in your knowledge or experience or associations mo, what are already the given collaborative efforts to bring awareness or to put actions also from this awareness, even up to the household level? For the information din ng ating mga members.
Yeah. The first I will share is that our government is also working. We have agency doing like that, the Climate Change Commission, doing everything in terms of increased awareness. We have the LG, we have other sectors, other government offices doing that. I think one of the best in terms of collaborative that, for example, in our project, we see the climate risk or the impact of climate risk is not just focusing on just one particular barangay or one particular community. It's basically cut across the political boundary. That matatamaan eh. So one of the collaborative or action that's been doing in the community is really to work with other sectors. Even if you're not a farmer, even if you're not a fisherfolk, but you're still living in the community, first talaga is to engage yourself. Engage with the barangay. Say something about it. What can we do about the flooding? What can we do about this food security? What can we do about this and that? It all started in engaging yourself. Yun eh. May mga ibang kaming sample like in Giwan, we involve a lot of stakeholders. Kasi dati kasi yung isang maling-mali talaga, yung sabihin natin na kakulangan, dalawa yun eh. First is that yung plano ng mga some of the government galing sa taas. not galing sa baba. Dapat galing sa baba sa talagang yung sectoral group. Pangalawa, they only plan by themselves. They don't engage with other stakeholders. So that's one of the nakikita ko. They need to go down. They need to engage lot of sectors. Kasi ito lahat matatamaan to. Walang pinipili sa impact ng climate change. Yung tinatamaan ng typhoon o yung mayaman ka man or may kakulangan sa pera, lahat tatamaan. Pero ang problema lang, hindi lahat tayo pantay in terms of kapasidad. Kasi nga yung iba, madali kasi may pera, may network. How about those other sectors? Sila pa naman yung nagpo-produce ng pagkain sa atin. So, one of the actions siguro, sasabihin ko, it could be if you're in a different land setting, like if you're in urban, it's really dalawa yun it's either to mitigate or adapt. So, one of the mitigation din talaga is that yung carbon footprints mo, kung pwede, pag-isipan mo, paano ba to pabawasan. But in terms of adaptation, anong pwedeng magawa ko? One of the best advocacy or your role, maski anong position mo, is to talk about it. Talk to your children, talk to your neighbor, engage with barangay, talk about something about because lahat tayo natamaan. Pangatlo naman is really get involved with groups. Maski in the FB pages, ang dami mga environmental group, youth groups dealing with climate change. And pangatlo, walk your talk. Example, if they say that you could have an urban gardening in your home, like, 2 plot lang, pwede kang magtanim. Or it could be like, i-catch mo yung rainwater mo para hindi ka magdagdag ng tubig doon sa kabilang bahay na mas maliit na bahay tapos mababa yung ano nila na nag-flood sila. So, those are basic lang. Like, one of my friend put something like rainwater catching sa bahay nila. Sabi niya, I'm doing this because I want to have water during o sabihin natin makabawas sa bayad sa tubig. Sabi ko, hindi lang yan. First, also you're contributing to the hazard, the flood itself in your community. Kasi ginagamit mo yung tubig eh. Pangalawa, you're also helping also in terms of what do you call this, yung risk din na makadagdag din ng contamination of other water source. No, kasi kung ano yung tubig galing sa bahay mo tapos ano yung dumi niyan, dala-dala niya yan. Pero kung kini-conserve mo yan, ginagamit mo maulit, marami pong matulungan. Diba? So, I also told him that imagine kung majority of the household na may mga bahay sa mga area na flooded area, they have a rainwater catchment and they conserve the water at gagamitin nila, reuse or recycle it. Would you think that there will be like lesser impact in terms of flood risk? Talagang meron talaga. Yun eh. So isang sample din namin sa island. For example, in the island. Yung problema pa kasi sa idea ng rainwater, ang nasa isip nila ay madumi yan, sir, yung rainwater. So, hindi ko maintindihan na, how can
so, bakit madumi? Saan dumaan?
Tapos yung tubig nyo galing sa groundwater, so ano pa mas madumi?
Dumaan sa mga pipes yung ano.
Okay. Sabi ko, so basically, that's one thing. That's one of the yung gaps din eh. So yung learning din eh. So we provided inputs, as I said. Ang dami mong pwedeng gawin, mitigation, adaptation, even planting a single tree at the back of your house. Yeah. Yung may good example ako dito sa bahay. Yung sa likod ng bahay, maliit lang yung may lupa lang. Tapos may 3 papaya na parang I think it's a wild papaya. So sabi ko, hindi ko ito puputulin kasi alam ko during mataas yung ulan, nagpa-flood yung sa likod ng bahay ko Sabi ko, hindi ko putulin. Then nung lumakas yung ulan, tapos ilang buwan na mataas na yung papaya, napapansin ko hindi na siya nagpa-flood. Or nagpa-flood man siya, madali nang nawala. Tapos sabi ko, if we have this mindset, every Filipino mindset, even the young ones right now, to plant a trees, to contribute on something like mitigation and adaptation. First, I contributed in terms of mitigation because I know trees absorb carbon. Pangalawa, I also contribute in terms of food security because this papaya will provide me food.
Yeah.
So, it's also lessen my risk in terms of flood. Yung ang dami. Tapos pang-apat, kasi parang napansin ko bago na, uy, may ibon na. May ibon na napupunta doon. Tapos may isang ibon na yung flowers yung kinukuha nila. So I'm contributing to the biodiversity. So imagine that. even one family, or sabihin natin 1,000 family, or isang barangay na 56,000 population divided by 4, so around like 4,000, plant a single trees. That's 4,000. And then you're already contributing to it. But I'm not saying that planting trees is the solution to the climate crisis right now. It's just one of it.
Yes.
The best solution of climate is really to mitigate or to lessen our carbon footprints. Yun talaga ang pinaka-best.
Kaya kung malapit lang pupuntahan, huwag na magkotse, maglakad na lang. Yan. Which is good kasi we also had a member who shared about yung personal mobility, which is siguro naging advantage during the pandemic here in NCR na walang public transport, so people learn how to use the bikes para nag-back to basics. And somehow yung mga LGUs, no, tumulong din dito in giving them a share in the road. Which is kung titignan mo, para akala mo ina-address lang yung needs sa transportation, no, or mas cheaper source of transportation, pero mahahabi mo na doon sa effect din sa environment natin. So doon sa
lahat, also contribute to your health.
Yes, and good for physical health. Which is nakita ko parang siguro nga yung awareness is dun sa level na may ginagawa na palang effort yung mga tao, even as simple as that. Hindi lang nila nare-recognize na ito pala nakaka-contribute dito sa aspeto na to more than sa economic na naisip. Baka pag mas na-connect nila yun, mas lalo sila mai-incentivize to do that. Diba? Siguro mas ganun. And it's good katulad nga nito, sabi mo, even just talking about it. Kasi kahit ako, ngayon lang uli, para marirefresh sa'yo, maaaring alam mo dati, di ba? Pero hindi mo naiisip kaagad, no? Kasi una, iisipin mo, I like urban gardening kasi in ngayon. Plantitos, plantita.
You know what, and the best form of advocacy, from my point of view, is really to discuss, to talk about it. No matter what sino yung kausap mo, relate to something what's happening, at ano yung pwedeng gawin natin. Ganun lang yun. So simple as that. And when we talk about it, it's also build up something like, uy, ano ba yung dapat gawin ko? Or it could be like, I could talk to someone, I could talk to my children, I could talk to my barangay officials. Ganun lang yun eh. So the best form talaga is to discuss, to talk about it. Yun talaga ang una.
And somehow pag may, and somehow pag may effort ka on your own way, kahit sa household mo, pag nakita ng kapitbahay mo, di ba sa mga Pilipino, gaya-gayahan lang yan. Uy, nagtanim na ganito, magtatanim din ako. Di ako silang gumaya for a good cause.
One of the discussion din yung parang, one of the, my colleague din, sabi niya, in terms of we have also the term 3R. It's different from recycle, reuse, but it stands more on watershed or water management. Sometimes, kung i-breakdown ko to, pwede ito ma-apply at the household level. First is what we call the retention. Second is recharge. Yung pangatlo is recycle. So, we just use the word yung retention lang kasi yung iba kasi medyo mahaba na. Applicable siya if we have a big watershed area. Yung retention, one good example ng retention is really the rainwater harvesting. You retain the water for another use. Yun lang ka-simple. Pangalawa, if you look at in your barangay, in your community, pag sinabing wetlands area to, or ito yung bagsakan ng tubig, lahat dito nag-absorb yung tubig, or may watershed area na yung isang slope na bundok, tapos walang ginagawa. Sabihin mo, lagay tayo ng maraming kahoy dyan. Bakit? Kasi kung maraming kahoy dyan, pag umuulan, nasa-stop yung water eh. Tapos nare-recharge yung bundok. Pag nare-recharge yung bundok, maraming tubig sa ilalim. At during dry season, may tubig yung farmers. Ano lang. So how do we start that? Let's talk about it. Let's get engaged on community. Even you're not farmers, even that you're not fisher folk, whatever. Especially if you're in the position. Because we try to advocate right now that from the business as usual, yung thinking, yung the way they do it, to more resilience awareness. How do we lower our risk? How do we build capacity? How do we increase our coping mechanism from household to community to even city to province? So this is usually ito yung parang ina-advocate namin eh. Simple as that. Good.
Yeah. Very good sharing, 'di ba? In a short span para ma-enlighten ka, 'di ba? Kasi ito naririnig mo, minsan i-advertise sa TV, pero yung parang you have to absorb it on para ma-actualize mo you actually going to do it, and yun nga yung relevance ng isang bagay na madaming aspeto ang maapektuhan. So it's a good learning and to remind us, no? Kasi minsan sa school tuturo 'di ba sa mga estudyante o dapat ganito ganyan, pero pag hindi na-apply sa bahay, 'di
Wala
ba
rin
wala
eh.
din.
Yung,
Oo.
yung mga anak ko nga, tinatanong ko nga eh, ano yung climate change? Isang sagot lang, bagyo. Ganun lang ang simple. Sabi ko, hindi na mali yan. Dito, ganito. So, anong gagawin natin? Yung TV, kung hindi ka
Yes.
yung TV, huwag ka magamit ng so much power. Kung kaya mo, wag mo na. Kung punta ka doon, etc., huwag ka na magamit ng electricity. Lights. So, I think it's basically you started that you discussed it, you talk with it, and you come up with a simple action, simple example with them. I think they will somehow i-increase yung awareness na at alam nila anong gagawin.
And those will become habits, 'di ba? Habit forming 'yun eh. 'Yun ang maganda eh. 'Di ba? Na hanggang lumaki, makasanayan mo, 'di ba, kahit tayo, 'di ba? Hindi 'yung tipong, 'di ba, usually magulang, "Oh, hindi na nanonood ng TV, ganyan ganyan, mahal ang kuryente." Pero more than sa pagbabayad ng kuryente, 'di ba? 'Yung contribution mo din doon sa ating environment. 'Yun.
Ang dami na ring technology ngayon, no? Like if you have the capacity, like gamit ka ng solar panel to produce energy, etc. But doesn't mean na magwe-waste ka rin. Parang gano'n, di ba?
Oo,
So,
offset din.
Parang gano'n eh. Ang dami na rin eh. Pwede ma-apply. Pero hindi lahat tayo pareho ng kapasidad eh. So, if you imagine like fisher folk, farmers, anong yung supposed to be their role? Magdepende kasi yan, Miss Annie. Like for example, if we're in the urban right now, definitely we cannot just go like punta ng dagat, something like stop the illegal, something like that. No. We usually have the role in time discussing, empowering awareness building, so that this sector might be aware that they also have the role na para ma-identify sila na we need to take action, something about it. Like for example, simple lang, do not cut mangroves just for the firewood. Do not convert the mangrove area just for a development. Because these have the ecosystem na may mga papel to eh. Simple as that. Yung wetlands, wag mong gawing swimming pool. Come on. Kasi alam na may tubig. Pwede gawing swimming pool. Oh my God, how about the farmers in the next 5 to 10 years? Ano ng tubig nila, etc. So, ganun. Tapos, yun. Ang dami ko pang sample. I just have to repeat myself.
No, it's very good kasi to be honest with our members, nag-worry ka that you'll turn out to be technical in discussing. Pero naibaba ba in layman's term, very concrete example, and para bang when you talk about climate change, you don't necessarily have to do big changes. Diba?
Yeah.
In the little things that we do, and yun nga, kailangan lang may sense of consciousness tayo to sa ginagawa natin. Na it's relevant not only for a specific objective, pero yon na kaugnay din siya with our environment, which in turn we have to recognize kung ano nangyayari sa environment. Sabi nga natin, affect economically, socially, no, and even our physical, no, yung katawan natin. So that's a very, very good discussion, Jeff. And lastly, before we end, may tumatawag na sa'yo. So lastly, with all the things that have been said, and what can you advise? No? Last message mo sa ating mga members, no? Para from there, we can plant the seed, and syempre, may kanya-kanyang pamilya yan, may kanya-kanyang influence, no? What message can you give them to help us contribute dito in addressing, mitigating, no? Or being preventive sana eh. Hindi lang yung pag-a-address sa existing problem na.
Yung sinasabi ko na kanina eh, pero babalikan ko na to. Yung point ko talaga na is to talk about it. Engage with other groups. Engage in your barangay. That's the second most important. Look at the risk. Not just look at now, but look at the future, because we have children. Look at the next generation. Ano yun? Tapos pangatlo, small action or small yung ginagawa mo, it doesn't mean na wala ka na kuno. It's basically you're contributing na. Remember, if 1 or 2 or 3 people will start this, it could multiply to 100 and 1,000. At the same time, for example, if one person will plant a tree and the next thousand and millions will plant the trees,
Yeah.
imagine that. Diba? So it's boiled down to one thing. Let's talk about it. Let's put action on it. Let's come up with a more small contribution. Will be fine. And if you're in a position to come up with a plan, or if you're working with a government, and be sensitive, because you're in the position to contribute to a bigger part or bigger role in the community. Dapat nandun yung resilience building, nandun yung climate change, nandun yung disaster risk reduction. Ano yun? Dapat nakalagay doon. And yun, I think that will be some of my pwedeng maisabi. Kasi I'm working right now with different context din. For me right now, I'm working with as a volunteer right now in one of the barangay in Cagayan de Oro. So we're targeting right now to contribute in enhancing their DRR plan and even their barangay development plan to mainstream the climate change, the impact of climate change. And when I talked to one of the barangay council, and she was really very like, "What? Check for free?" Yes, for free. I'm contributing something. Okay, fine. When do we start? Parang ganun.
Na-excite siya.
Excited. Basically, babalik ka lang. It's really to talk about it, discuss about it, engage at the local level. You don't need to engage national. You engage with your local, your barangay, your purok. That's where it started. Yeah. And,
thank you very much, Jeff, for very enlightening discussion. Yeah. Thank you for taking the lead, not only in your job, but in your community. Of course, lahat yan apektado tayo, even how far you are. And for sharing with us this very useful information na talagang we learn a lot from it, and hopefully we'll take action. So thank you very much, and God bless you with all your undertakings, and maayong hapon na sa inyo dyan. Thank you, Jeff.
Hapons.
Okay. Walay pala naman version. Thank you.
Thank you.